Hello and welcome to another episode of Harvest Prosperity Podcast. I'm your host, Naomi Marsh, here to guide you on this beautiful journey of self-discovery and empowerment. In today's episode, we will be diving into the delicate balance between hope and expectations. And we're going to just explore a little bit about how these two concepts can really influence our lives in really deep and profound ways. And some of us may not even be aware of this. So we're going to bring awareness, then we're going to move right into mindfulness and how to identify these, the difference between the two and really kind of establish that balance. So while both are really, kind of integral to our personal growth journey in itself, understanding their differences and how to manage them can really help us be open and receptive to what's to come and kind of lead more of that fulfilling and resilient life that we're here for. So my hope today is that this episode will help you to identify the role that each of them plays and, specifically in your life, and then how you can harness the power within yourself of hope while keeping your expectations in check. And that's really what it's about, is keeping those expectations in check. So let's just dive right in. I mean, understanding hope and expectations is, I'm sure you've all kind of heard the saying, don't get your hopes up. I mean, I've heard it so many times in my life, I say, forget that, get those hopes up as high as you can. It's your expectations that you need to, like I said, keep in check, air quotes. Okay. So hope is very powerful and it can really propel us forward. It can lift our spirits and ignite a passion within us, for the future, what's to come and all of the possibilities. And it's okay to dream big, let your hopes just soar as high as they can, because they are the fuel that drives positive change and innovation within our lives. Our hopes and dreams drive that change in the evolutionary process of us trying to raise our vibrations. And so when we embrace hope, we're really inviting endless possibility into our life. And that's really what we need to tap into. So here's the key. It's important to really approach hope with a sense of balance. It's like with anything in life. So while you let your hopes rise and you get your hopes up, you're ensuring that you're also simultaneously managing your expectations. So they don't really go hand in hand, but we've been taught that. And I think that's a conditioning of sorts. We have all of these expectations. And so, oftentimes, myself included, they tie us to specific outcomes. So that can lead to disappointment. And, if things don't go as planned, you're really let down. And so instead of cultivating, an adaptable mindset, a hopeful mindset where you can appreciate the journey regardless of the destination, you get let down with your expectations of how you thought it was going to be, or, whatever it was, whatever the situation is. So when we allow hope to be our guiding light, so to speak, we really begin to view each step on our path as a valuable learning experience and an opportunity. There's opportunity out there. What ifs, your hopes up or what ifs. And so this perspective it dives real deep within us. It allows us to celebrate this growth and resilience that we have within us with each step, rather than being hindered or, by these unmet expectations. So by managing and maintaining this balance within you, you can create a fulfilling life enriched with both dreams and realistic goals. And so keep nurturing those hopes and just watch how they inspire you to achieve wonderful, great things in your life. The nature of hope itself is positive. It's forward. It's like a forward-thinking mindset. And so it's really an opportunity for an open door to possibilities and an invitation really to dream, and that's beautiful in itself, just the possibilities. And so hope is what fuels our resilience, and it helps us kind of persevere through any challenging times as well. And it's healthy to have hope, because especially in times like this, we need to be empowered. This hope empowers us to envision and to work toward a better future, a future that we see, a hopeful future. So we need more hope. And, expectations, on the other hand, they're more of a specific outcome that we're anticipating. We're trying to write the story. And while they can be motivating sometimes, to put that pressure on there, they can also come with a risk. And that risk is disappointment, that letdown, that defeated, emotion that just takes you over and just is like, taking the wind out of your sails, and it really just, zaps your energy and everything. So you're trying to avoid that lower vibration. And the only way that you can do that is with an opposing energy. And so you have to be able to balance everything out. So it's okay to have healthy expectations if you're trying to marry that in with your hopefulness. It's the disappointment you're trying to avoid. And it's unavoidable in some situations. We are going to be disappointed. What we're trying to do is manage how we're responding and how we're training our mind. And so we can build this life that we want, that we desire. And it starts with understanding the difference between hope and expectation. So how do we identify expectations? What if you need help with that? So think about what you're thinking about. Take a moment to ask yourself, am I just hoping something will happen here, or do I expect it to happen? And remember, hope opens the door to all kinds of possibilities, and expectations often mean you're looking for a specific outcome. So sometimes that can actually act as a barrier. So when you're identifying them, it's important to, any expectations, and you're reflecting or anything, it's important to really take time to either write them down or somehow, get them out to where you can really analyze it, without overjudging. You don't want to judge yourself. You're just trying to say, hey, am I being hopeful, or am I putting my own expectations on this? It's really just about stop, pause, take a beat, and think about it. And you're actually going to bring more peace into your life by that. A lot of times expectations bring a whole slew of other emotions with it when we're let down or we're stressed out or all of that. So write it down, or somehow, analyze how you're thinking, and practice practice that mindfulness. That's what it is. It's saying, okay, I'm aware of what's going on and how I'm thinking. I'm asking myself these questions, and now I'm going to take action with it. That's what being mindful is, and having having that mental discipline. So it comes from awareness, hey, I'm aware of this, into the mental discipline of it, which is mindfulness. So that's why it's so important to just sit with yourself and reflect as you're moving through this, so that you can become better and learn from your habits and change them. You can replace it with a healthier habit of hope. And, hope nurtures an open mind and an open heart. It allows us to remain flexible and adapt to life's changes. So when we focus on hope, we really begin to nurture a mindset that embraces growth and transformation, rather than becoming stalled by setbacks and letdowns that are going to happen. But I feel like this was helpful for me to learn when it came to relationships, really. I would intentionally place these expectations on these relationships. I mean, with people I worked with, or the job itself, or maybe my children or friends or family, etc. And expecting them to fulfill these roles that I had in my mind, to meet these standards that I had placed on them. And this often led to misunderstandings and disappointment, honestly, because maybe somebody didn't meet my expectations, or maybe in the reverse, I didn't meet somebody else's expectations, So by shifting our focus to hope, when I did that, I began to really appreciate each individual in the relationships that I have, and for exactly who they are and what they are. And I acknowledge that they bring, this, and this to the relationship, And so instead of fixating on these unmet expectations or what I want them to be, I allowed them to be themselves. And it also, has to do with their capacity and my capacity. Could be different. We're in different parts of our learning journey. They may not ever be able to meet any expectations that I have, just like I might not be able to meet theirs. It's not their fault. It's not my fault, but we can't expect ourselves from someone else. And I think that's the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway from that is that expectation that they're going to be, if I think that they should be responding this way, and they don't respond the way that I think that they should respond, well, it's not their fault. They are where they are. I can't expect me from anyone else but me. So I'm going to manage how I'm responding and the energy that I'm putting out there. So, and remember, relationships thrive on that mutual respect and understanding. So this is very respectful to not put those expectations on someone else that could possibly be weighing them down. It's good to put all the hope that you can in them, but get those hopes up high, speak favor over them, without expectations. And when we focus on nurturing hope and letting go of expectations, we create this space where that pure unconditional love and trust can really flourish and bloom, and it allows everyone to thrive together. So plus it relieves a lot of unnecessary stress and tension that expectations can bring. So another way to kind of give you an example, like a relatable example, would be imagine if you're preparing for like a job interview, like a position that you really, really, really want. And, you research the company, you practice answering all their questions, anything that comes up, you got it all down. You even picked out the perfect outfit, to make a good impression. And so in this scenario, let's explore a little bit about what hope and expectation, what that role would play here. So you approach the interview with a hopeful mindset. You're thinking, I hope this interview goes well and everything, and even if I don't get the job, at least I'll gain some valuable experience and feedback, and I'll do better next time. And this hopeful perspective allows you to feel positive and motivated. It energizes you. And so it opens the door to learning and to being receptive, regardless of the outcome. It keeps your mood, uplifted throughout the whole entire process. This is hope in action in real life. That's being hopeful. Now, on the other hand, if you approach the interview with this, kind of rigid expectation, you might think something like, I must get this job or the whole effort will be a failure. If I don't get this, then all is lost. And this expectation can add that unnecessary stress and pressure and anxiety, and most likely make you nervous during the interview. So it's going to interrupt your flow. And if the outcome doesn't meet your expectations, oh, good grief, right? You're going to be feeling disappointed and defeated and deflated and, and then maybe even a little self-sabotage in there. Why isn't everything going to work out for me? And all of these, kind of this downward spiral. So, and it's most likely going to overshadow any learning opportunity that you have because you're just in that woe is me state, This is the trap of expectations. So that's the trap it gets you in. And it has this cascade effect on our emotions. So we're trying to avoid that because we want to really be in balance. Regardless of whatever is happening around us, we want to be able to respond in a way that's healthy and that, really aligns with our desire to grow. And that's what this example kind of illustrates. It's embracing hope while managing your expectations, and reducing your stress levels. Because this allows you to really grow and be adaptable with each step on this beautiful journey you're on. So when you shift your focus to hope, you can celebrate your courage, that you even applied for the job, and you can also, experience the experience that you gained in any situation, regardless of whether you get the job or not. This mindset will keep you resilient and ready for future opportunities. Okay, so let's find the sweet spot of balancing hope and expectations. First thing is intention, right? It's important to set your intention with clarity and purpose, and no matter what you're trying to accomplish. So when you set an intention, you're not just like wishing for a specific, outcome, but you're more like focusing your energy on the journey itself. So it's kind of like the phrase, life is about the journey, not the destination. It's exactly like that. That's exactly what we're talking about. So this mindset allows you to remain open to various paths and possibilities that might unfold. So an intention acts like kind of like your compass, it's guiding you through the twists and turns of your journey, and it keeps you grounded in your values and your priorities and ensures that your actions align with your true self, your authentic self. And so by setting like a clear intention to focus on hope rather than expectations, you're inviting a sense of purpose and direction into your life, which empowers you to navigate even challenges, any kind of challenges that may come your way. So as you move forward, remember, to revisit and refine your intentions on a regular basis. This is a form of self-care and self-inventory that a lot of people don't realize how important it is. It's that moment of reflection, and turning inward. And so this will help you stay connected with your goals, and also it'll allow for any adjustments that you need to make as you grow and evolve. We're not static. We're meant to grow. So that movement and allowing that movement and that growth is super important. So embrace that power of intention and everything that you do, and use it as a tool for creating this, life filled with hope. Okay, so let's talk about a few things that you can do to help yourself. So setting goals is very rewarding, in my opinion. You don't want to set them too high. You want to set them very realistically and keep them flexible, because our goals should be flexible according to how we're moving along on our path. So instead of having these, more rigid expectations of immediate mastery of like this skill that you're trying, like maybe you're trying to learn to guitar or something, you have these expectations that you could just pick up this guitar and, start being able to learn right away. And maybe that doesn't happen, right? And so you're not going to get immediate mastery at some things, So why not focus instead on gradually improving your skill with the hope that you can master it someday. So it's much more fulfilling to celebrate your progress along the way when you do it like this more gradually than having that, being hung up on perfection or being hung up on what your expectations are of immediate mastery of something, which could be instant gratification as well. So, and remember, celebrate each step. So every time you have a little victory, every time you've reflected with something and you said, am I putting my expectations on this? and you've stopped for a moment, pat yourself on the back. Hey, good job. You stopped. You are moving past awareness into mental discipline. So every tiny step, big, little, in between, every step is, you celebrate it with yourself and you give yourself a little pat on the back. So another key, beyond setting goals, another key to maintaining kind of a hopeful mindset is practicing gratitude. Being grateful. It takes nothing. You have so much to be grateful for. I'm sure you can look around right now and name at least 5 things right immediately that you're grateful for. So tap into that energy. Gratitude is a beautiful, beautiful energy. And so this mindset, having a hopeful mindset and practicing gratitude, you just got to take a moment to appreciate what you have and what you're working toward. That's it. Very simple. And this attitude of gratitude enforces that hope, and it also helps keep your expectations in check. So, life's full of uncertainties, and learning how to embrace these uncertainties can actually be incredibly empowering and freeing. When we accept that uncertainty is just part of our journey, we're creating a space for hope and growth, and without burdening ourselves with the strict expectations that could be holding us back. So I like to think of, I'm always talking about seeds and planting and gardening, but I like to think of it as planting seeds of hope within us, and if we can imagine hope as this tiny little seed, that's planted deep within the soil of our souls, of who we are, and like any seed, this little seed of hope needs nurturing to grow. It requires that sunlight in the form of optimism. It requires water in the form of our action and that flow. And the fertile soil it requires of a willing heart that's truly ready to flourish. So each day, as you tend to this beautiful little seed of hope with care and intention, it starts to sprout. And it's, reaching for the sky and all of these possibilities with the promise of new beginnings and abundance and endless possibilities. And on the other hand, what we're talking about is expectations more like an invasive weed in your garden. It quietly takes root in the same soil, right? And then all of a sudden you're wondering why your little tiny sprout isn't doing so great, It might be subtle at first. These weeds can grow silently underneath, taking, all the root space, overshadowing the tender little sprout of hope. That's what expectations do. And expectations, unlike hope, will often, because they're demanding this specific outcome, they're demanding everything, they're pulling in all this energy. And when those aren't met, they can choke out the good growth. And it can leave us, feeling let down and disheartened. So it's time to pull those weeds, get rid of them. And then you're going to cultivate this hopeful garden, and to keep your garden of hope really vibrant, it's important to know the difference between hope and expectation. What is it that's poisoning my garden? Maybe you don't really know what's happening. So this could be a point of awareness for you, and so now you're aware to nurture those seeds of hope and remove the weeds of expectation and regularly check in with yourself. When you start to notice the weeds coming in, gently pull them out so that you can allow that beautiful growth of hope. I feel like when I relate to treating hope as a seed, it requires love and care. That's where I kind of go to, and it allows me to be more nurturing to myself instead of judging. And when I see expectations as a weed needing management, right, I can create a flourishing garden within myself. And then, be able to thrive and produce more of what I'm nurturing. So this, metaphorical garden becomes really a sanctuary where my dreams and aspirations and, can grow unrestrained by any limitations of expectations. Really allowing me to thrive in this beautiful landscape filled with potential and abundance and promise. So there's a couple of things that you can, that will encourage hope in everyday life that you can do. I talked about a couple things already, but if you can visualize a positive outcome, just spend a few minutes each day visualizing positive scenarios and possibilities that fill you with that feeling of hope. And you can draw about it, you can paint about it, write about it, talk about it, whatever you need to do, listen to songs, and just get it down on the inside. Also, connecting with inspiring stories, reading or listening to stories of hope and resilience. Those will boost your own hopeful outlook on life, and surround yourself with hopeful people that, engage with you and inspire you and uplift you, and nurture that beautiful environment of hope within you and around you. It's super important. And, embrace hope as a powerful ally, by recognizing the difference between hope and expectations. You really are creating a more joyful life, and remember, hope opens the door to endless possibilities. So you don't want to have expectations in there acting like a barrier, setting things off, and limiting your potential. So get those hopes up high. I want to encourage you to do that. And even if you have to remind yourself in a song, I know you've heard it. He's got high hopes. He's got high hopes. So I'll leave you with that little gem stuck in your head for a while. But it's the truth, And one last thing before I go, I want to read this quote to you. I'm not really sure where it came from, but it's just something I felt like sharing with you. It is beautiful to have flowers blooming in the garden. Even more beautiful it is to be a flower blooming, to be open and vulnerable, to be letting go and offering our own beauty to the world. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Harvest Prosperity Podcast. I hope this has inspired you to cultivate hope in your life. Don't forget to hit subscribe to get notified when another episode drops. And if you're looking for holistic coaching, support, or resources, you can visit harvestprosperity.com to reach out to me directly. You can also connect with me on Instagram and Facebook at Harvest Prosperity. Until next time, continue nurturing those beautiful seeds of greatness within you.